Hello YouTube, this is outmatched here bringing another Wargame European Escalation Commentary. Today we're in the large map open range in another 4v4 and today's video I'm going to be showing you the advantages of persistence and the usefulness of falling back to consolidate your position, taking advantage of the various zones you offer. Also, I'm going to be showing you the disadvantages of relying on overwhelming force to defeat the enemy, and how tactics can easily overcome an overwhelming force. At the start of this game, I was concentrating on mainly taking Hotel and Foxtrot. These are both 3-point zones, and however, Foxtrot can often be difficult to control because if the enemy goes for an infantry-based approach and takes the woods here, it can be very tricky to get them out of it. And Foxtrot can be quite difficult to secure. Hotel, however, is much more easy to secure if it is under threat, as it has a hillside to defend from and woods. Therefore, I was sending fewer units to defend this BDRM, as most experienced players avoid it due to the difficulties in overcoming even the lowest of defense. As you can see, I was advancing quickly into Foxtrot, hoping to take it to get the points as soon as possible, and to move my army up into Gulf to prevent the enemy gaining access to the forest, hopefully pushing them into Delta without any trouble. As you can see, the enemy is now expanding rapidly. They have set up artillery, command vehicles, several more artillery units, a lot of tank destroyers. This attack was actually not that successful for me, and it put me on the back foot for the rest of the game. As you can see, I'm moving the BDRM first. I used this recon in conjunction with the PT-71, as it is very fast and therefore can scout ahead of the main units, preventing the expensive ones from running into an ambush that they haven't seen, whereas the PT-71 is a lot more powerful in a battle itself. Also, if one of these happens to be destroyed by a stray shell or a TGM, I still have recon capabilities. As you can see, I have 2 pairs of 2K 2GM Tunguskas vetted to enable greater accuracy, and 4 T64 BVs with 4 Euro 4320s to resupply. This is generally a very well balanced force and can overcome most obstacles. However, when attacking ATGMs, it can be quite dangerous, as we will find. So you can see the enemy at Delta is reinforcing with several anti-aircraft missiles, the Roland 2s and the Chaparrals. However, this is beneficial for me as I do not have any aircraft at this time, and therefore these are nothing but targets. On the other side, my ally has pushed firmly into Mike and is threatening Lima. And over here there is an intense battle going on. We were actually at a disadvantage in this game, as one of our players wasn't actually playing, and because he didn't surrender, we couldn't even get the points that he was earning. So it put us on the back foot a bit. As you can see, the Valmatifos are still unseen by us and have managed to open fire. These are ATKM equipped tank destroyers, and already are managing to put serious damage on us before we can even engage them. Also, he has got artillery, which is being used very well. It is shelling the area around my units, panicking them and destroying them, which means that they are going to come out extremely badly in this ATKM duel, as their missiles are going to miss. Also, the supply trucks are being destroyed by the artillery fire, meaning that I won't be able to repair or rearm my units. This is definitely a very good use of artillery, as I have been completely incapacitated by just a few tank destroyers against 4 very high powered battle tanks. As you can see, the Bradley CFV armored recon is with the ITO ATGMs. It's a very powerful ATKM is providing the recon to ensure the artillery is deadly accurate. All my supply trucks have been destroyed, half of my tank force has been destroyed, and generally the offensive has been completely stopped, and without me scoring a single point. However, they use it at a disadvantage now because the tank destroyers aren't very good on the offensive, as when they are moving they are unable to fire. So he is clearly much more interested in defending his position and using artillery to force my lines back one by one. As you can see, I am trying to move my armoured recon around just to see what kind of units he is reinforcing to Delta. He tank destroyer prototypes, support vehicles equipped with a powerful autocannon, and lots of tank destroyers. He was clearly focusing very much on tank destroyers, anti-aircraft missiles and artillery. As you can see, the shelling has forced the T-64s and the PT-71 back from the woods. I noticed that there was a recon helicopter flying around, so I tried to move my Tunguskas up into range just to get a quick snipe. Unfortunately, there were too many tank destroyers that were threatening my recon vehicle, so I had to pull back. As you can see, I'm now buying in the T-813 armoured supply trucks. Hopefully these will be a bit more resistant to the artillery fire than my standard Urals, so I'll be able to survive a bit longer. As you can see, Hotel has been completely ignored. Generally this is, as I said earlier, just because it's such a tricky location to attack, it's generally left as it is, even if you don't actually have any units in it. But generally it is safer to go and put some units in there anyway, just in case someone tries to be clever, but in this case not. As you can see, I'm now moving up some infantry to... My first thought was to put them in the woods as a defensive force, but then when I realised how much artillery has, this wouldn't last long. So then I looked at the composition of his units and noticed that he didn't actually have any tanks or anti-infantry units, all he had was artillery to deal with them. So I thought if I could move the infantry units close enough, they could do some serious damage against his forces. Unfortunately this time I was using the ATKM equipped infantry, and therefore they couldn't advance that far. Also he has smarter VTSIs, which are fairly competent against infantry. As you can see, the BTRs that the infantry are carried in will not last any more than a few seconds. And unfortunately this self-propelled artillery is still within striking range of the PTR Conquerors. It isn't within its minimal range first. It's quite unfortunate for me because at this very short range the artillery is super accurate. However, the BTR Conquerors are still doing a fine job. They've taken shelter in this factory area and are firing their ATKMs, taking out the Martyr VTSIs and the 3 Paladins. As you see, the Tunguska's managed to get in range of the recon helicopter and manages to take it down on this side, denying their artillery the ability to fire accurately at my units. And I have now angled the PTR Conquerors so the Martyr VTSI cannot see them, meaning that there is nothing apart from the Bradley on this side that can actually shoot at them. As you can see, he's trying to move the Martyrs into firing range of the infantry, as well as getting his Paladins ready to fire. But these guys are still doing serious damage and taking down Rolands, tank destroyers and other units. That artillery strike misses, allowing for another Roland to fall. As you can see, I was planning to resupply them with with a new recon vehicle because his because the ATKMs run out quite quickly. Unfortunately, they were overcome before they could get there, and they retreated. As you can see, he's clearly very panicked by this attack, hopefully distracting his allies from my friends. He's also moved some rangers up. This is quite annoying, as they also have recon capabilities, meaning that the recon helicopter isn't effective. And the Bradley IFV's ATKM is also a very dangerous threat, as they're taking down a Tunguska. And the constant artillery proves too much for this defensive line, so I have to fall back even more, threatening my ability to defend the woods, and therefore Foxtrot. As you can see, over on this side, my allies have managed to hold positions at Romeo, are moving up command vehicles to Papa and Mike. So hopefully we'll be able to get a few more points in to hold off. As you can see, they are now building up a solid force of VAB, ATKM tank destroyers, mortar VTSI, prototype vehicles, new recon helicopters, chaparrals, IFVs, lots of artillery supplied by Canucks. And basically, when you compare the two armies, I am very much outnumbered at this point. He is also mobilizing several mortars, Bradleys, Panzer Grenadiers, and Steiner teams on this side. If I was focusing on this, I might have been a bit more worried about hotels, because they seem to be heading in its direction. But in reality, they are trying to flank the position of Mike. I also try to sneak some Mi-8 transport helicopters equipped with the VDV infantry around to try and cut his supply lines, but unfortunately they were spotted by the BO helicopter, recon helicopter, and as such they have been marked, and he is going to reinforce a series of chaparrals and flak panzers. So these guys are doomed, even though they don't know it yet. As you can see, they are preparing to attack Foxtrot with their huge horde of tank destroyers and vehicles. There's very little to stop them, although the T-64s are supplied and the PT-71s are being repaired, so they're more effective against this huge horde of mortar VTSIs and tank destroyers. This could be tricky. So this is the first example of them using a huge rush attack, using overwhelming force to push me back. As you see, the mortar VTSIs are coming in with the Bradley equipped with the Rangers infantry, and Leopard 2A4s, flak panzers, and Roland 2s are coming in to support. These guys are being decimated, hopefully providing at least some distraction. Z64s are firing their ATKMs, and as is PT-71. As you see, the Valmet lasers are not being microed very effectively here. They should have been kept at a much longer range to use their ATKMs more effectively. Here they are is definitely not a wise way to use them, as he could have overcome my force quite a bit sooner if he had managed to stop them in time. But still, it happens. As you can see, because the Mari VTSIs are so fast, I know there's no way of my Tunguska's retreating, so I might as well throw them into the battle. I've also moved up some more ATKM infantry, seeing as they were effective last time. Might as well try it again. In this case, overwhelming power definitely wins the battle. All my units were destroyed, my supply ducts have been captured, and therefore I decided to retreat my command vehicle from Foxtrot. This is something that I definitely don't see soon enough, that you should always retreat your command vehicles if there's any threat to them whatsoever. If you don't, then you're going to lose some points very quickly. However, I did notice a weakness in this, which is despite all these tank destroyers, all his anti-aircraft units were brought to deal with my VDV infantry, meaning that even a couple of basic hands could do a lot of damage, as we are about to see. I brought my recon helicopter over to allow them to fire their full range. And as you can see, even this powerful mob of units which suffered casualties taking Foxtrot has been completely turned on its heels by the Mi-24. He is now desperately trying to reinforce his stuff with Rolands. My ally has brought in a Mi-28 Havoc. This is definitely going to do well, but unfortunately because he's got all of his stuff around, they're running out of fuel, so they won't be able to get here in time. Also, I mentioned to my ally that he does have significant AA presence up here, so therefore I mentioned that there are Rolands, and that if they retreat, just let them retreat. These Rolands are going to be doing far more damage to our helicopters than we would be managing to do to their tank destroyers. As you can see, he's bringing in Cobras to attempt to combat the helicopters. The Rolands have moved up and are preparing to fire, so this is clearly the time to retreat. His Havoc takes a pretty big beating. I move my Keeper Mi-24As in front to try and soak up the missile flak. And in general, although his attack has been halted, I lost significant units and I'm definitely on the back foot. As you can see, they are now planning to attack Bravo to completely drive me out of this area, again using overwhelming force. So now the Cobras are moving in, hoping to do some damage to the command vehicle before I can retreat. However, because there are so many of our helicopters here, the Cobras aren't going to get far. As you can see, I'm now fully abandoning Foxtrot as there is just too many units swarming about here for me to deal with. He's definitely going for a massive swarm of units that use overwhelming force to devastating effect. And at the moment, NATO is in the lead with 1,600 points to our 1,200. Although my allies have been able to defend the borders fairly effectively here and here, because we are only 3 players against 4, their combined swarm of units here is forcing me back, as well as the loss that I had of several of my main battle tanks at the start, and the artillery, which has definitely been focused on me. As you can see, I'm trying to counter their tank destroyers with my own, using the BDRM2 Conkers, as well as hoping to bring in some anti-tank infantry, seeing as the tank destroyers won't be able to prey on them, as I learned back here. This is clearly now a huge amount of infantry and tanks using the roads to speed quickly to Bravo, hoping to overwhelm me yet again. Here I'm using my Mi-2 Europe Salamandra anti-tank helicopters. This was my first match using them, so I wasn't sure how effective they were, but generally they weren't that effective, really, because they lacked the rocket pods of the Hind. They weren't able to stun units like the Roland 2s before landing shots. So as you can see, they went in, had a look at what would happen, and flew off. One of them was quite lucky not to die there, as the Roland 2s could definitely pack a punch. As you can see, I have kept one of my recon units in the woods here, because I want to see what they're feeling, so I can counter it. Also, hopefully, when they move the front line up to Bravo, Foxtrot will be relatively undefended. Maybe they'll even put a command vehicle in, and I can use the BDRM1 to knock out the command vehicle. Also, if any of my allies start building artillery, this will be very useful to hit their flanks.